All right, so in this video, we're going to continue working with the assignment that we have been working with before. And in this video, we're going to start doing some sorting of the data, and we're going to show you how to do a few other things with the equations. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sorting the data that's here based on undergraduate tuition. And what's going to happen is we're going to sort it from the least expensive to the most expensive. And when we do that, what's going to happen is it's going to mess up our equations down at the bottom, because right now those are based on uh, the data itself, and it's based on the current arrangement of the data, so that when we sort that, it's going to mess up those equations. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to paste this information somewhere else just to save it without actually keeping the equations. So I'm going to select the data and I'm going to copy it, and then most programs that we used, there's just paste, there's copy and paste. Well, in a spreadsheet program, there's multiple types of ways that you can paste information. So I'm going to right click, or if you're on a Chromebook, 2-finger click. I'm going to go to paste special. And under paste special, you can see there's a bunch of different options for how you can paste. And so what we're going to do is we're going to paste the values only. That way it gets rid of the equations and it just keeps the answers to those equations. So I'll click on that paste values only, and then I'm going to resize these columns now to fit our data that we've pasted over there so we can see all the writing. And now you notice that these numbers are now big decimals, and we want to get rid of those. We want to make it look like currency again. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to go to that column, and we're going to go to format and number, and we're going to make it currency. Okay, so now we have two sets of the data that are the same, except if I click on the cell and then I look up at the formula bar, you can see it's just a number. It's not the equation. All right, so next we're going to sort that data. And what we're going to sort is columns A, B, and C. So I'm going to select the first column and row, cell A1, and then down to the last one here by holding down Shift and then clicking in that last cell, C16. I don't want to select everything in those columns, because when I sort them, I don't want to sort the equations and stuff that I have down below. Ideally, you'd have those in a different column so that they didn't mess up if you're trying to sort the whole column, if you had big numbers of data there. All right, so now I'm ready to sort, and I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to go to sort range. And this is where we tell it that it has that header row. That way it's not going to sort our titles. So we click on the data has header row, and then we're going to sort by undergraduate tuition. Now, if we had a bunch of this information that had the same answer in this column, we may want to then add another sort column, and we could choose another row to sort it by. For example, we could sort it by province as well. If we had, say, 30 universities that all had the same tuition rate, then we might want to still sort them by province so that we can still have another level of sorting. And you can sort it by a number of different criteria. We don't need to keep that one, so I'm going to get rid of it, and we're just going to sort it by that. And so now we have our data sorted from the lowest tuition in Memorial to the highest tuition at Mount Allison University in New Brunswick. And now right away you can see our answers at the bottom have now all changed. Our average hasn't. That stayed the same because it's still using the same set of data. But the order of the data has changed. So now the answer for New Brunswick is different, and the answer for Nova Scotia is different. And that's because they're no longer relevant. And that's because we changed the order of the data. So it's still taking the average from C2 to C5 rather than using the average for New Brunswick itself. And I'm going to show you in another video today how to change that, just in case your data did get resorted. You'd still be using the same data if you were using an equation. All right, so that's step one. That's the first thing you should be doing. So let's get that done, and then we'll go on to the next step. All right, so in this second part, we are going to fix those equations at the bottom. Now we have the number saved here, but if we wanted to, particularly working with a big data set where we might have been adding in new information, if we wanted to make sure that we were always just calculating the average for New Brunswick or the average for Nova Scotia, we can actually use a different equation. So I'm going to show you that new equation, which is called average if. And the if add-on to equations exists in a number of equations. We haven't looked at a bunch of them yet. We did look at the sum equation in one of the earlier videos. And again, there's a sum if. And that if lets you add in a qualifier or a condition that will tell it when to average it or when to sum it or when to count it and when not to by using two different columns. One column would be the qualifier or the condition when you would use the average, and then the other column would be where the actual data is held so that it knows where to take the numbers from. So I'm going to do that for New Brunswick. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to delete that column or the information that's there, that equation that's there. And I'm going to start a new equation again with the equal sign. And now I'm going to start typing in my average. And there you see the average if. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to select the first set of information, which is where the qualifier comes from. So I'm going to go up to the province column, and I'm going to click on the first bit of data, hold down Shift, click on the last bit of data. Now, equations are very particular. You have to enter them in exactly right or they're not going to work. And so I've entered in where I'm going to get the data from. The next thing I need to enter in is a comma. And then I'm going to have to type in what I want to use as my qualifier. Now, in order for it to be recognized as text, I need to put in quotes like you would if someone was speaking. So I'm going to add in quotes, and then I'm going to type in New Brunswick. And then I'm going to add in another quote, and then I'm going to add in another comma. So far it should say B2 colon B16 comma quote New Brunswick. Spelling has to be exactly the way it's spelt in there, so make sure that your spelling is correct and consistent. And then another comma after the next quote to end New Brunswick. And then I'm going to click on where I'm going to get the actual information that I wanted to average. And so again, I'm going to go up to the top. I'm going to click on the first bit of tuition, and then I'm going to click on the last bit of tuition, and then I am going to press enter. And so you notice that I'm selecting everything, even though I only want to get the average for New Brunswick. Okay, and so now you're seeing a very complex equation, average if, and then the whole data set where I have information, and then the whole data set where I have the tuition cost, and then it's just adding up for New Brunswick. And now you can see the answer, $7,219.50, is the same as the data that I had pasted earlier. So now I've fixed that equation, and what that means is that no matter how I sort this data, it's always going to be correct. And if I had put this, like I suggested earlier, in another column, and rather than going from B2 to B16 and C2 to C16, I just selected the whole columns, then it wouldn't matter how much information I entered in, how much data was there. It would always sort it or average it or count it or whatever for that column. And that would allow you to enter in more and more data, and it would continually update that average. So now I want you to do the same thing for Nova Scotia. Fix that equation so that you have the average if equation, except this time it's to calculate the average for Nova Scotia. And once you get that done and you get your answer to correspond with the answers that we have pasted on the right, then you are done for today. Good luck. Any questions, just email me.